Just when we thought Penn State was going to have a lineup issue at 57, 65, and 74, now we might see a wrestle off at heavyweight between two twin brothers.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. My name is Zach Sako, your host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, help me welcome back Justin Basch from the Bashomania podcast with Matt Scouts, Willie Saylor, and thank you so much for joining us as it is great to connect, to talk some wrestling. We're going to preview Final X. Penn State has the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club has 6 members going at it for Final X on Friday here. But Connor Mirasola bumping up to heavyweight because there's not really a clear path at 197. So are the twins actually going to wrestle off? Jayden James, does he go in at 57? Can he make the weight cut? Where does Mitchell Messenbrink go? Don't forget about PJ Duke, William Hankel. Friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Justin, to throw it to you, what has intrigued you the most about this freestyle circuit when it comes to the Penn State lineup? Is it Jayden James and how you try to fit this freshman phenom into the lineup, or the fact that Connor might actually wrestle off against his twin brother for the heavyweight spot?
Yeah, it's interesting, Zach. You know, there's so much that happens at Penn State, and it's happening. There's year over year, there's stuff that happens. Like this year, the 5-for-5 came into play, and that's what really kind of started this conversation with, the fact that there's really no more red shirts. Now, guys can still opt into red shirts. Guys can still adapt into the old rules, I think, for like 2 more years. So I think it's one of those things where right now picking weights is like throwing darts at a dartboard and seeing where they land. You know, could Jayden James cut down to 57? Could he just be natural and not cut and maybe go up to like 74? I think a lot of it is a couple things. But, you know, it's funny when you're doing the intro and talking about what catches my eye the most, what, has me intrigued. I'll tell you what has me intrigued the most. The fact that we sit here and talk about the depth, and we talk about there's 2 guys that could go here, 3 guys that could go here. You got 3 guys that could be a title contender at 57. How about the fact of why these guys stay in the room when a lot of wrestling fans are like, man, Mirasola, instead of going up, he should transfer out. You really got to think about why Penn State has created a culture. Penn State has created a culture. Why are these guys wanting to be here so bad? And I had Connor and Cole on my podcast last year in the spring, and I asked them, this was after Ryder left, and the transfer portal last season was crazy. And I said, people are always asking you guys, would you guys leave? Would you guys leave if one of you didn't make a spot, both of you? And they're like, no, like we want to be world and Olympic champions. And if I can't make the lineup here at Penn State, then I probably can't win a national title, and I probably can't win a world title. I want to stay here. And it's like, man, you talk about all these lineup log jams and options, and it's like, it really makes me just sit back and think, man, Penn State has created such a culture that for the most part, all you see transfer out is, fifth year seniors, guys like Terrell Bearclaw, who wanted to graduate from Penn State, wanted to be a strong teammate.
Lucas Cochran.
And then transfer out for 1 season. I think Penn State fans typically always wish them well and are rooting for their continued success. So it's crazy. It doesn't surprise me that Connor and Cole are probably going to wrestle off for the heavyweight spot. I mean, I look at it kind of differently than most. I look at it as like these guys are twins. They're built-in best friends. They have nothing but love and admiration for each other. And they know by competing, is it ideal? Absolutely not. But iron sharpens iron. And these guys are going to be sharpening each other. And it wouldn't surprise me if they beat each other for the spot. And somebody, if Cole wins first and then Connor wins, and by the way, like Connor's naturally growing up in size. I don't think that this is just like let me bulk up to heavyweight. I probably have a better shot of beating my brother than Josh Barr. I don't really think that's the thought of like trying to fit into the lineup. I think he's just Connor's growing. And, a lot of these guys, more and more, I think, the Bo Bassett's, the Jax Forrest, these guys that are preaching that they want to wrestle a healthy weight. And if they get bigger, like Bo Bassett, he's not going to go heavier than 65 kilos. He's probably not going to grow heavier than 65 kilos. He's kind of set in this weight. And I think the more you see guys just wanting to compete in their healthy weights and not really cut weight, it's just, I think almost, it's the off season. So we all love to speculate lineups and try to guess sometimes why. And it's like, I think the two cool things about it is, one, what a culture Penn State has created, that guys would rather go up in size and potentially wrestle your brother than leave and compete for another program.
And to add to that, it's what you said about the freestyle aspect, that the Mirasola twins, they want to win world titles. They want to be in contention for the Olympics. I imagine at some point in time, the twins will be settled in at 92 and 97, but I don't know at the end of the day, right? That's my expectation. That would be my prediction, just because of the way that they're not true heavyweights. There are guys that are definitively bigger than them and have that size advantage, but you can tell right now, Connor's really settling in at the heavyweight spot. And I think from my point of view, how I initially diagnosed this was that Penn State really likes having that tweener wrestler like a Lucas Cochran. And now you basically improve that role, where somebody who's going to hover around a weight that somehow you're able to stay competitive at heavyweight, but also be able to drop down at 197 at a moment's notice, because Penn State doesn't have another backup option to Josh Barr. And Barr got injured on this freestyle circuit, right? We know that he deals with injuries. So why would Penn State push Connor to push Cole, his twin brother, without a contingency plan with Josh Barr? I think that personally interests me more, because it means that Connor's going to be a Swiss Army knife. I think 57, 65, and 74 will figure itself out. But the twin brothers wrestling off for a heavyweight spot, I think there's more to it than that.
Yeah, and if you look at like a world championships, you could have Josh Barr at 92. You could have maybe Connor at 97 with, Snyder's also 97. I mean, Connor just won Pan Am, U23 Pan Am gold last week at 125 kilos. Like, it's like no matter what weight you go in that room, there's not an easy path. You talk about Connor, if Cole's at 125 kilos and Snyder's at 97, there's your two choices: an all-time great who's what, 10-time world Olympic medalist, or your brother. It's like, not damned if you do, damned if you don't, but it doesn't make it go where you can compete better versus trying to game the lineup. There's so much talent there.
Yeah. So how it ultimately and some people have speculated that, well, because they're twin brothers, this actually works out where they're doing what's best for the team, but also what's best for each other. Cole maybe taking a year off, or not necessarily a year off, but basically being that backup, and Connor gets a turn, and then they flip, and then they flip. So the twins would be willing to do that, right? I don't see anybody else getting together and saying, yes, let's take turns in the lineup for one another. Only the Mirasolas, and only at Penn State could something like this actually happen. But I'm interested about what we talked before the podcast.
Yeah.
And Jayden James, can he cut weight? Can he not cut weight? Because I know Willie has him eventually at 184.
Yeah.
But if 157, to me, 157 makes the most sense from a lineup perspective, but maybe it doesn't make the most sense for Jayden James and his build. Can you add some clarity to that? What Jayden James is naturally right now at 163, 165 with freestyle, of course. Can he cut to 57?
Can he? Probably. I think we see him at I don't think we see Duke at 57 again. I really don't. No. I think Duke cut so much weight. I think his days at 57 are done, and that leaves both Kasich and Seeley at 57. You then have, Messenbrink at 65 for one more year, and you have Duke at minimum at 65. And then, you have Henkel, you have Asher Cunningham, you have these guys up at 74.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a spot where Jayden James can go and just, hey, this makes the most sense for the lineup. You've got title contenders at every single weight. I personally think Jaden's going to go, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's no plan yet. See what happens this summer. See what happens with training. See what happens. It's like, look at Braden Davis. Every year there's a different plan for Braden Davis. He redshirts, somebody gets injured, he's in the lineup.
Yeah.
You don't know what happens this summer. A lot of Nittany Lions competing at different world championships, at different events. Even in training, you never know if an injury is going to happen. And all of a sudden, maybe something happens that one weight looks more lucrative for the team. But I think when you're Jaden and you're 18 years old and you're growing, and it's June right now, who knows what November is going to look like? I think take the summer and see how your body grows, and then kind of make a decision from there on where he's feeling he's competing the best.
And he's just turning 18. Some of these guys come into college wrestling a little bit older, right? He's still, that's why Jayden James cutting to 157, but he could end up at 184. Yeah, the range of options is still very much wide open for someone like Jayden James, and he'd be competitive at whatever spot, 57, 65, 74.
100%.
I can tell you that right now. I would take him as a true title contender no matter what weight class he's going to be at this upcoming season. Final X this Friday going down. Penn State, the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, have six matchups that they're involved in. We're going to go through all of them and make our picks for them coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and you can focus on growing the business instead of managing the software. And let's talk about Penn State here, because they have a new identity under new head coach Matt Campbell. An adjustment like this in itself was important, but what really should impress you is how smoothly it has been implemented. Everyone knows their role. Everyone's on the same page, and that's usually what separates a good team from a great team. Great teams, great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That is odoo.com/lockedon. And remember, you can listen to Locked On Nittany Lions ad-free by becoming a member of the Everydayer Club. Plus, you will get access to a members-only Discord server to talk all things Penn State. Visit LockedOnNittanyLions.supercast.com or check the link down in the show notes to learn more. We pick back up with Final X. It is finally here, and Luke Lilledahl, Spencer Lee, Marcus Blaze versus Jax Forrest. We're going to end Zain Retherford versus Ridge Lovett. So we'll go 3-3 here and then get to Levi, Haines, Kyle Dake, and Kyle Snyder in the final segment. Luke Lilledahl did, I don't know necessarily the unthinkable, the unimaginable, but certainly got a win over Spencer Lee quicker than most people would have expected.
Yep.
Because I think Luke Lilledahl was closing the gap, but then he actually finally got the win and got the spot. Now, most people are still going to pick Spencer Lee that, Lilledahl got lucky or that was just a one-time here. I still think this is a close match where I'm not going to sit here and say that, Spencer Lee is guaranteed to be the rep at 57 kilos. Am I picking Spencer Lee? Yes. Am I favoring Spencer Lee? But also, I still think that Lilledahl could take one and is a threat to win this spot.
I'm taking Luke Lilledahl. I think people are sleeping on him so much. And everybody talks. First of all, Spencer Lee is a GOAT. It's not disrespect to Spencer Lee. Luke Lilledahl has won at every level. U17 world champ, U20 world champ, U23 world champ, NCAA champ. And he just beat Spencer Lee, excuse me, is the number one ranked guy in the world right now. And what I don't understand is who cares? And maybe this is a hot take. Maybe I'm alone in this take. Who cares that Luke won at the end of the match for Spencer? Gable won the Olympics that way, and everybody paraded him as a hero. It's an incredible thing to do, to win late, to win clutch. And it's like, nobody says, well, if Gable wrestled him again, Gable's not going to beat him again. He only beat him at the end. Likewise, or on the contrary, Gable just did the unthinkable. He was clutch against a star and won the match. That's what Luke did. I don't care that it was last second. I think that gives more credit to Luke than people think, that he can come up clutch, that he didn't throw the towel in, that he dug deep and he got it done at the end. So, listen, it's Spencer Lee, while an all-time great, he's also coming off world championships where he didn't medal. He's coming off being beat by Luke Lilledahl. He's got the loss at RAF. It's not like this is, and you don't know if he's injured. You don't know these things, of course, but it's not like he's some, Lilledahl, and with everything else Spencer has done, I feel like that gap has closed enough. And if you've got, in my opinion, the best coaches in the country in Lilledahl's corner, I think they're going to have Luke ready. And while I think it'll definitely go 3, I think the fact that it goes 3 could benefit Luke more than Spencer.
Based on this last match here, it seems like Lilledahl just has more in the tank at this point in time. And Spencer Lee did look like he got injured in that match or didn't have full capacity there. So does that play, if it goes to a best of 3, I agree with you there that it is definitely going to favor Lilledahl as opposed to Lee, to keep it rolling through again, because we have so many Nittany Lion Wrestling Club matchups to talk about. Marcus Blaze versus Jax Forrest. Didn't get to see it on the folk style, in folk style, on the collegiate scene, but we get to be treated to it on the freestyle circuit. And Blaze is, I don't know about a much better wrestler, but definitively better wrestler, right? I think that same thing, and I think some people say the same thing about Jax Forrest too, that hey, he's really good at folk style, but wait till you see him in freestyle as well. So this is an instance of, you get 2 wrestlers that this is just better for them, or that they're better at it. And I look at it as a toss-up. I don't see Jax Forrest, because he won the NCAA title and he was first and Marcus Blaze was 4th, that's an indicator that Blaze is going to get swept or it's going to be decisively Jax Forrest. I can see this going to a best of 3, and I don't know who I'm going to take, but I'm probably going to side with the Penn State Nittany Lion Wrestling Club guy, Marcus Blaze, over Jax Forrest here.
Yeah, I think both of these guys can absolutely win this. Excuse me. I think this is going to be a dogfight. And I really think it's going to come down to who shows up that day, who competes harder that day. I mean, both these guys, I said it when Willie and I did our Final X preview show last week. I can make the argument for both these guys winning. Jax just made a senior world team as a junior then in high school. Yeah. And it's, going into a senior year, Jax is so damn good. He was in the bronze medal match at Worlds, just won an NCAA title as a high school senior. Then you also have Marcus Blaze, very good freestyler. He won world gold last year at the junior level. He won world bronze at the junior level the year before that. He won world gold at the cadet level the year before that. So the past 3 years, Marcus Blaze has gone cadet champ, junior bronze, junior champ. Crazy. That's the last, 23, 24, 25. I think either guy can win this. I have no clue. I can't remember who I picked on the show to be consistent, but I think it's such a toss-up that either guy can win. And I think either guy wins here. I feel like this is a World Championships medal match. I said the same thing about Spencer and Luke on our previous show, that right now, John Kozak at Flow has Lilledahl ranked number 1 in the world and has Spencer Lee number 2 in the world. You're essentially telling me we get a World Championship final, best of 3. Like, anything can happen. Same thing here. I think this is a World Championship medal match, best of 3 series. I think either of these guys can win, and I think whoever wins goes in medals at the Worlds.
Zain Retherford. So we talk about Lilledahl and Marcus Blaze, who are starting to get into their prime. Zain Retherford is a guy that's trying to extend his prime, goes to the World Team Trials, wins close ones that, aren't really exciting. They don't inspire, I guess, a lot of confidence, if you will. But a win's a win at the end of the day, and I think it's the fact that Zain Retherford shows up to World Team Trials and he's still got it. He's still extremely difficult to score on. Would I like to see more scoring out of him? Absolutely. I admitted that when I reacted to the World Team Trials at the time. Ridge Lovett here as a contender at 70 kilos, really talented wrestler. We know what he did at Nebraska. I still don't see anyone beating Zain Retherford because of that defense. And I think as he goes through RAF, he gets the World Team Trials. As he shakes off the rust, he's only going to get more comfortable and more back into his groove. So Retherford's only going to be better. And I'm not expecting, I could see him sweeping this matchup here, but I don't want to discredit Ridge Lovett. It's mostly because I think Retherford's just that good.
Yeah. And so people watching this on YouTube, you're watching my eyes probably ping pong across the screen. And it's because, I've got these guys' Wikipedia pages pulled up because, it's so easy to just look at things through the lens that you want to see them, right? Mm-hmm. I hate when I say right. I don't know. The last 10 years, everybody always adds right to the sentences. Zain Retherford, Flo put out a clip where I think it was Piles said the week before World Team Trials, I'm hearing that Zain I hear that Zain's entering. And Zain's a good friend of mine, a client of mine. I texted him. I said, "Are you competing next week at the World Team Trials?" He said, "Who said that?" I said, "Flo put out a clip, that they think you're competing." And he goes, "Wow." He's like, "I didn't say that." He said, "I am thinking about it, but I don't know yet. I haven't made a decision, but I am thinking about it. I'll let you know if I do." And so 2-3 days later, just before he registered, he shot me a text and he's like, "You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to compete. I'm registering today."
So Flo inspired him.
and what's interesting is you're telling me a week before he was still on the fence whether he was even going to compete. And who knows what led to exactly why. And, the coaches clearly felt that he can still compete for a world title. Penn State's not, those coaches aren't just going to tell him, go out there and wrestle. You might be able to make a world team. If they're telling him because they have confidence that he can still win another world title. And so he goes and he wrestles the next 3 matches. His first real freestyle matches since the Olympic Games when he had a concussion. He beats 3 straight NCAA champs. He not only beats 3 straight NCAA champs, he outscores them 13-3. Robideau scored 2 points, Henson scored 1, Anshel Taylor scored 0. I don't know how Zain, Ridge Lovett, very, very good wrestler. But when you're talking who's the pick and who's the favorite, how do you score on Zain? Like, if Ridge can get into his legs or create something funky, I think Ridge has it in him to make it happen. But I think Zain's the favorite. He's not letting anybody take him down. I think, he doesn't. You talk about you saying you wish you would have scored more points at the World Team Trials. So does Zain. He's like, that's not how I want to win. I think when Zain wins the way he wants to win is what you saw at RAF back in May. You saw him, up with a shutout and then still going for a bow and arrow with seconds to go to get even more points. So he's aggressive. So I chalked those first couple of matches back up to just shaking the rust off. And I think he's going to be fine. I think, he goes from May 15th, qualifies for Final X. You have over a month to prepare for one guy. I like Zain's chances here. I'm obviously incredibly biased, but I really like Zain's chances here.
Yeah, there's a big difference between more of a spur of the moment type decision where you figure out, hey, I'm going to go compete for World Team Trials versus I got a month to get into the best shape possible for this one wrestler. That is the difference here. And there's not many others that do it better than Zain Retherford. Well, maybe because we still have a conversation to be had about Levi Haines and Chance Marsteller, Zahid Valencia and Kyle Dake, Kyle Snyder and Stephen Buchanan. Does Kyle Dake get revenge on Zahid Valencia? Kind of similar to Retherford, that he settled in at a weight class and should be better because of it this time around. We'll talk about it all next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Levi Haines versus Chance Marsteller. Battle of Pennsylvania here at 79 kilos. And then we'll talk about how Kyle Dake just continues to age like fine wine against and going up against Zahid Valencia. Kyle Snyder, business as usual, most likely at 97 kilos. But there's chatter. Hey, maybe it's because of the anti-Penn State bias or whatever. But Chance Marsteller really has a good shot to upset Levi Haines, or he shouldn't even necessarily be the favorite. I see Chance Marsteller as a really good opponent that could go to a best of 3, but Levi Haines, just turned 22 in his prime, and he was a world silver medalist last year, a year younger. What is to tell me, what evidence do we have to say that I should be lower on Levi Haines as a competitor, regardless of matchup here? Why should I doubt Levi Haines at any point right now where he is in his prime? He's not even in his prime.
I know. Yeah, I'm with you. When we were doing the preview show for this, I said I thought Levi would be a bigger fan favorite. Here he's coming off a world silver medalist, another NCAA title. Mm-hmm. Levi, he goes out there and dominates. He goes out there and wins clutch matches. He goes out and wins gritty matches. He just gets it done. And Chance Marsteller is a very, very tough opponent. Chance beat Burroughs to make a world team back 3 years ago. Chance looked good at the U.S. Open. But, man, I just Willie, was a bit more bullish on Chance. And I said, why? What's he done in the last 3 years that makes you think, hey, he can go and do this? And I said, don't get me wrong. I said, I think 79 kilos is his right weight. He's got some good wins up at 86 kilos. I just think Levi has the momentum, and Chance is very good when he has one guy to game plan for, like he did for Burroughs in 2023, but then at the same time, like that next year, Burroughs came back and beat him twice in a row. He beat him 3-0, then he beat him 6-3. So it's not like, Chance went and beat Burroughs 4 times in a row. I think Chance is very good. I think Chance is going to give him a match, but I think it's Levi. I don't. Yeah. Like you said, Levi's only 22 years old. He feels like he's continued to be on that incline, and at the same time, Chance is 30. He's been around. I'm sure his body's starting to wear a little bit. Once these guys get up in age. Look at Zain. Zain just was out for 2 years with a concussion. Zain's 31. It's tough. So I think Chance is going to put Levi in a dogfight, but I like Levi. I like Levi a lot here.
What I could see happening is Marsteller wins match number 1, and then Levi Haines comes back around and takes the next 2.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I think Chance is such a stingy defensive wrestler, and if Chance does take match 1, and Chance has those tree trunk legs that he kind of sits back far, and he's very hard to get to his legs. Mm-hmm. So if you give Chance that first match, man, it's going to be tough. Levi's going to have to really be the aggressor in that second one, because if you're telling Chance, okay, one more, man, winning match 1 here for either guy, I think is going to be huge.
I think that's the same setup or the same idea with Zahid Valencia and Kyle Dake as we continue to pivot. Kyle Dake, it was close last year, right? This is another, the way that you described, hey, Marcus Blaze and Jax Forrest, Luke Lilledahl versus Spencer Lee. This is a world medal matchup in theory. Zahid Valencia versus Kyle Dake. Kyle Dake, is it crazy to think? Is it crazy to think that he hasn't looked better in the past couple of years here? And I know that Kyle Dake has been so good over the course of so elite over the course of a decade here. But just at 86 kilos, I thought we'd see, hey, incremental improvement, that, the age is going to counteract with what now you focusing on 86 kilos. So you're making progress, but at the same time, not as quickly as you once would in your prime. And I don't really see any difference from the vintage Kyle Dake versus right now. And he even said it. He's like, age isn't a factor to me. Age is just a number, is what he was hinting at. So Kyle Dake versus Zahid Valencia. I got to think that Dake's going to get revenge here against Valencia now that he's been a year at this weight class.
Yeah, the counter to that is that Dake also didn't place at the ranking series back in February. Dake, he's looked good at some points. He looked great at the Open. I thought he beat Parker Kekheisen 8-2. He beat Aiden Sinclair 6-1. Those are some good wins.
Yep.
I thought the win over Parker at RAF just after NCAAs was a good win. But I don't know how much of this is even Dake. When I'm just like looking at this matchup, I'm thinking what Zahid is going to show up. Because the Zahid that won the World Championships last year and did not give up a point, I think he's too big for Dake. I think he's too tall. I think he's too big. I look at it as a 92 kilo guy who's very damn good at 92 kilos. This wasn't like, hey, let me go up to 92 kilos. He was a world bronze medalist in 2023, comes down to 86. Dake coming up from 74 and 79. Naturally it favors the guy coming down, I think.
Yeah.
So if Zahid wrestles like he did at the World Championships last year, I don't know how anybody in the world at 86 kilo beats him, let alone Dake. I just think Zahid's on another level when he's on. Similar to Dake taking a couple losses, so has Zahid. Zahid took a loss at the Zagreb Open. Zahid took a loss to Parker at RAF.
Yep.
Neither of these guys have been perfect since they last competed. I think Dake absolutely is one of the greatest to ever compete, and he can beat Zahid in best of 3. But at the same time, to me, this is very much what Zahid shows up. If Zahid shows up the exact same Zahid in the World Championships, I favor Zahid. If Zahid isn't on his 100% A game, then I think Dake can very easily sneak in and get a series win here.
It's a toss-up, but there is reason to say, well, Zahid Valencia is the defending world champ after all, despite, a couple hiccups here and there. But he should. Yep. I absolutely think Valencia should be the favorite. He is favored going into this one, but it would not shock me at all if Dake, circles the wagons and wins.
No, 100%.
Yeah. So we settle in at 97 to finish up with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club matchups. Kyle Snyder against Stephen Buchanan. This is probably where I'm going to have the least analysis or setting up the stage here. Is that Kyle Snyder is Kyle Snyder. I've been very impressed with Stephen Buchanan, though. And I would not put it past Buchanan to make this a best of 3 series, to make this a serious matchup that's going to challenge Kyle Snyder. But Snyder's just so dang good to be cliche, to be basic about it. And Buchanan's still getting into his own groove here. So it's kind of just the setup here where Snyder's so experienced, Buchanan just getting started. But I haven't seen any signs of, hey, Snyder's slowing down. He's vulnerable here. And Buchanan has a spot. I still see Snyder operating just at a high level to where I don't question it. So it would be kind of unthinkable to see him lose to Buchanan.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think a couple things here. I think Buchanan teched Yazdani back at the Zagreb Open 13-3. And all of a sudden, now, first of all, it was Yazdani's first time, I think, up at 97, I believe. And it wasn't stock down Yazdani's first of the way, but it was stock up for Buchanan. You beat a guy like Yazdani, and that is a eye-opening moment, eye-opening win, stock up. But then his very next match, a couple weeks later, he loses at RAF. And it's like, okay, pump the brakes a little bit here. Because he beats Yazdani, and everybody instantly, can he give Snyder a match? And that's appetizing to think, wow, Buchanan, Snyder's made every world team since 2015. He's medaled at every world and Olympics except one. Snyder is quintessential consistency. And Buchanan was the guy who was like, man, maybe he can. Then he loses at RAF, and then he gets tacked in the finals by the Cuban at the Pan Ams. And it's like, man, okay, so again, pump the brakes here.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's interesting. At the same time where you're kind of seeing like, okay, Buchanan, he takes the loss at RAF. Okay, just a hiccup. Then he loses, gets teched by the Cuban. At the same time, Snyder has looked so good. He did take one loss back at the ranking series in February, but he's had these RAF wins, He beats Taz 3-3. Taz, one of the biggest up and comers around, beats him. Then he has that amazing comeback in the next RAF. Then he does a 10-0 tech at the last RAF before this weekend. It's like this competing, this regularity we're seeing Snyder competing seems to favor him. He seems to be getting into a groove. I just love what I'm seeing out of Snyder. So if you take these last 3 months, and it's like, man, based on how Snyder's competing, how Buchanan's competing, I think Buchanan's probably the guy to give him a fight. I just think Snyder, when we were doing our preview show, somebody asked, what is the soonest you'd see somebody challenging Snyder legitimately? And I said, maybe 2028. I'm like, Snyder's 30 years old now. He's still, through the Olympics, he'll be 32 years old. I don't think he's going to stop anytime soon. But it's like, man, he's just, how do you pick against a guy who's so consistent and he's looking good? And I understand for the wrestling purists who say that the Taz match was a little wonky because Taz didn't know the RAF rules. Fair. At the same time, he still beat him. He still beat the 2024 Olympic champ, and he looked good doing it. So I think Snyder for me is stock up right now. I think Buchanan gives him a great match, but I ultimately think it's going to be Snyder in 2.
That's where we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Always great to connect and chat with Justin Basch. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Friendly reminder to let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Check out Justin's work, which will be linked down in the description. I highly encourage it. Justin, thank you so much for the time, for the perspective,
thanks for having
the analysis. And it was, like I said, always great to chat with you. Any chance we get to have you on the show.
Definitely. Happy to be on.